Okay, Deputy Boyd Barrett.
Ambassador, I will say frankly, I'm one of the people who thinks you should be expelled from this country, and I believe that that's nothing to do with you personally. It's to do with the policies of your state. And I think, along with Desmond Tutu, that the time for treating you as a normal state is over, because you're not behaving as a normal state. That leads me to my first question. You have tried to cover over what you have done, the killings of innocent people in Gaza on 3 separate occasions over recent years, the seizure of Palestinian land and so on, by attacking Hamas. Now, why don't you just admit that Hamas didn't exist when the first Intifada took place? They didn't set up an armed wing until the early 1990s. But the ordinary Palestinians rose up because you denied them basic rights. And isn't it the fact that the law of return, which is the basic law of the Israeli state, is a racist apartheid law because it confers rights on Jews that it denies to Palestinians? It allows, for example, if I was Jewish and had never stepped foot in Israel, I could claim citizenship there tomorrow, but 6 million people whose origins are in what you now call Israel, who were forced out in 1947 or 48, do not have that right. Isn't that part of the reason why the Palestinians are in dispute with Israelis? Because you deny them the right to return to their homes and to their land and to their villages, and that they have a legitimate claim, even under international law, to return, but you deny them that right. Why do you deny them that right? And why do you give that right to other people who have no connection whatsoever with the land, whether you call it Israel or whether you call it Palestine? But what they've asked for is to lift the siege of Gaza. Just to lift the siege of Gaza. Let them have an airport. Let them have ports. Let them not be dictated to by a government for whom they do not vote as to what can go in and out of their territories, whether they will have power, whether they will have clean water, whether they will have medicine. What makes you think you're allowed to have nuclear weapons and the 4th biggest army in the world and visit destruction on the people of Gaza, but they have no right to defend themselves? They have no territorial sovereignty over that land.
Would you ask questions, please?
How do you justify that?
Yeah. All right.
How do you justify those double standards?
Great stuff, mate. Yes, I feel like giving you a round of applause there for that, Richard. I mean, obviously you've been calling for the expulsion of the Israeli ambassador. I saw your question to the Taoiseach the other day. How's that going? Because there's due to be a vote, isn't there? I mean, has that happened or?
There's going to be a vote tonight. So
right.
If I get called away, it's because of that vote.
Absolutely.
So yes, I mean, obviously, like Max and yourself were describing, we've had a huge, outpouring of disgust at what Israel has been doing over the last few weeks. But I think not just the size is bigger, but the sort of maturity of understanding of people about what is going on, about the historic sort of, crime that has been inflicted on the Palestinian people. I think people's understanding and knowledge of that is greater than ever. And without exception, at every protest, what people were saying is this is an apartheid state. This is a racist state. This is ethnic cleansing. We have to treat Israel the same way as we treated South Africa. And that's a big change in the sentiment, whereas often people saw it as just the latest atrocity in a conflict between two sides. But I think now the vast majority of people understand that, there's something deeply wrong with the Israeli state project and that it is an apartheid regime. So I think the time to make the case for treating Israel the way apartheid South Africa was treated we've never had a better opportunity because people's understanding has reached that point. Not all the politicians, I think, but a huge, swathe of people, I think, a growing number, maybe a majority, I don't know. But certainly in this country, I think it is probably a majority. So in that context, we there was a motion in the Dáil, which was not a bad motion, about annexation of territories occupied in 1967. Yeah, now the government watered it down slightly, but it was
Right.
passed and will pass last night after the debate. But we put in an amendment which didn't subtract any of the points on either of the original motion or the government amendment, but added, because a lot of it was commentary and legalistic points about annexation. But what we added is, and the government will do the following. And those things were: acknowledge ethnic cleansing, acknowledge war crimes in Gaza, acknowledge the apartheid nature of the state, and expel the ambassador and impose South Africa-style sanctions on Israel until apartheid is dismantled and Palestinians have the right to return. So that will be voted on tonight. I mean, being honest, I don't think it'll be voted through, particularly by Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, but I do think it will get significant support, and there's a huge sort of popular support for it among the Irish people.